And welcome to another edition of our treatment of the International Sunday School lesson. Today's lesson is for February the 18th, 2018, the Winter Quarter lesson number 12. And it's taken from Acts the 9th chapter, verses 36 through 43. The title of today's lesson is Faithful Disciples. And this one is about Dorcas and how that she was such a good follower of Jesus and how that she passed away and the response of the early church as she did pass away and how that they had grieved for Dorcas and how that she was resurrected. And it amazes me sometimes how that some of these Sunday school lessons come up at about the time that I need to consider these things. I just early this morning discovered that a very dear friend of mine that I had done a lot of music with just recently passed away. And, you know, you think about people you care about that you've worked with, you've worked on projects with, and you see them pass away, and it does make you really sad, and that's what happened to the early church with Dorcas. Okay, let's turn to the verses here. The 36th through 37th verse. Now there was in Joppa a disciple named Tabitha, which is translated means Dorcas. She was full of good works and acts of charity. In those days she became ill and died. And when they had washed her, they laid her in an upper room. And we want to notice here how that Dorcas was given to a lot of good works. She had spent a lifetime doing good things and doing acts of charity, and how she was so well loved. But as it is with everyone, we're all going to get ill and die at some point in time, and that's what happened to Tabitha or Dorcas. Okay. Then the 38th verse. Since Lydda was near Joppa, the disciples, hearing that Peter was there, sent 2 men to him, urging him, please come to us without delay. So we see how that the church, they loved Dorcas so much. She had passed away. They, in a last-ditch attempt, sent for Peter because they knew that there had been resurrections and that kind of thing with the apostles. And so they sent for the apostle Peter to come to them. Okay, 39th verse. So Peter rose and went with them. And when he arrived, they took him to the upper room. All the widows stood beside him, weeping and showing tunics and the other garments that Dorcas made while she was with them. So we see how that Dorcas had her good works where she had done good things and sowed good seeds in this congregation, and people really did love her. That was one of the things that I always thought about my friend that I'd done music with that just passed away. How the number of people that he had encouraged, myself included, he was an encouragement to me and supportive of me and showed me and taught me a lot of things. As I was trying to do some music and that kind of thing. And somebody else was just posting on Facebook this morning that I was reading how when they were like maybe 14 years old that Jimmy had let them play at one of the restaurants where he was playing at as an encouragement to them, and how much of an encouragement it was to them. And we need to leave that kind of testimony in our lives of how that we can be an encouragement to the people around us, just like Sister Dorcas was. How that she made these garments for the widow women there at the church. Okay? And verse 40 and 41, but Peter put them all outside and knelt down and prayed, and turning to the body, he said, Tabitha, arise. And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. And he gave her his hand and raised her up. Then, calling the saints and widows, he presented her alive. So we see how this miraculous event happened, how that Peter had taken them, pushed them all outside and prayed and asked God to resurrect her and raise her from the dead, and gave her the command to arise, and she arose. Okay? Then 42 and 43, and it became known throughout all Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. And he stayed in Joppa for many days with one Simon, a tanner. So we see how that this was a huge testimony to the people of God, of how that this miraculous event led a lot of people to the Lord. And when we talk about really true miracles, the true miracles of God, how that they are for the purpose of bringing glory to God and drawing people to God, and not to build up little kingdoms for any individual preacher or anything. And that's how this was, how that this miracle was leading these people to God, so that people would be saved. Okay? Now, a couple of closing thoughts. Want to encourage everyone to look at the life of Dorcas. How that Dorcas had ministered to people in every way that she possibly could. And how that she was loved because she was ministering to people every way that she could. And we need to follow that example. And we also, too, need to be very sensitive of the situations that we may find ourselves in. You get inside the church house, and someone who is highly loved in the church passes away. We need to be comforting toward one another. We need to be comforting toward each other when somebody's kinfolk passes away. Churches need to be the most comforting, loving group of people around. We need to minister to people and be supportive. And yes, we know that if somebody is saved, they are on their way to heaven, and they're in a better place and everything. But that still doesn't keep somebody from really grieving when this kind of thing happens. So we need to be comforting to one another. Well, friends, you tune in again next weekend.